One of the interesting things about matter you can observe if you compare Jupiter and Mars, such that if you look at Mars, it's red due to the iron that is on the surface of Mars. And so this iron obviously has rusted and oxidized. That's what rust is. It's oxidized iron. Now, that shows us that there's oxygen on the planet, but beyond that, we wouldn't necessarily be able to breathe that oxygen. But one of the things that I do wonder about Mars is, wouldn't the metal, the iron that's on Mars, wouldn't that cause human beings to be cut, like if we were going to farm or something like that? But one of the other interesting things about Mars is, if you think about it, we have a virus like tetanus that exists in a lot of metal, such that it kind of hibernates there. So it makes me wonder that if you have to get a shot for tetanus when you are cut by a piece of iron that's rusted, what would you do on a planet like Mars? And one of the interesting aspects of that is that you have to ask yourself, as far as extraterrestrial life, tetanus could actually have survived or existed, or may still exist, on Mars. Or a similar virus to that can hibernate in metals or near metals or whatever. And so we would count that as, well, I don't know about life, but we would count that as an extraterrestrial entity. But, that's an interesting aspect of Mars. But one of the more interesting things about the fact of Mars is that if human beings could actually live on Mars, one of the things that would have to be there is obviously water, but if there was a cave system below the surface of Mars or any other extraterrestrial planet that we would move to, is that you run into the issue that a lot of chemicals or elements that we have here on Earth, such as electrolytes. That's the word I was looking for. One of the reasons we can survive on Earth is due to the electrolytes in the water that we get, and that water is filtered through a cavern system below the surface of the Earth. So if that was not the case, we might not have things like potassium that could help our heart function, among other things, or our muscles move. So this is really a good question to ask, is long-term survival possible on a planet like Mars? Not for a virus like tetanus, which could have come on a comet a long time ago, or a cousin of that virus. It hypothetically, but quite literally, it does raise the question that could we live for an extensive period of time on Mars, considering we wouldn't necessarily have access to electrolytes, or we might have a limited supply given that we take those electrolytes from Earth. But anyway, I started off by saying something about the difference between Mars and Jupiter. And Mars is called the red planet, like I said, because of the rust. But one of the differences is that Jupiter is actually a super planet, and that it's much, much larger than Mars or the Earth, or Mars and the Earth combined. So it actually has a large amount of gravitational pull, such that anything that's red that we would see on the outer layer of Mars, or not Mars, but Jupiter, would actually be a compressed material, much like diamonds are a compression of carbon here on Earth, such that when we see that red color on Jupiter, we aren't seeing something like rust, but we're not seeing an element that, due to the lack of that extreme density, could in fact exist on Mars or on Earth. It's similar to, if you think about it in terms of biological life, if you take a fish from a point deep in the ocean, like the Mariana Trench or something like that, it would be impossible, near impossible, to have that creature survive at a different level of compression from the atmosphere and the ocean and the land masses above it. Because that's one of the things about deep sea fish. And one of the interesting things about that is, there could be planets that do have deep sea fish, but we would actually have to go fishing on those planets. But even here on Earth, if we were to do deep sea fishing, it takes a lot of equipment and stuff. But when you think about it, if a planet was going through an ice age, much like Earth did due to deforestation, it's really an interesting thing that I don't know. This is just a rambling about